Hi, friend.
Hi, friend. Are you ready
Ready for what?
to level up?
Okay, girl, let's get started. Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of Level Up with Raman and Alysha.
Hi everyone. First off, happy Diwali.
Happy Diwali. We hope everyone is having a prosperous and happy Diwali with your friends and family.
Amazing. That sounded like the perfect Hallmark card. You said it perfectly. But yeah, wishing everyone and their family a happy Diwali. Continuing to our second episode of our Brown Girl Month. Um, I was going to say Girl Boss Month because I was getting it confused before with our earlier one. But on today's episode, we're going to be talking about the power of family. I know last week on our last episode, we talked about toxic family members and, a lot of issues that our South Asian families do face. But one positive thing, not one, but one of the positive things we also have and share in our culture is, having united family and having big families and kind of what's the right word? Having joint families and making sure that they're always there for you.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more with you. Raman and I, as much as we complain about brown society and how there's a lot we would like to change, there's also really great, like a silver lining and such great characteristics to our foundation of the brown culture. Like in the sense that, like, especially as daughters and males, and we're so fortunate to know that, like, we don't need to, by the time we're out of university, college, or any you don't decide to go to that secondary school, which I highly doubt in a brown family, but sometimes it's not cut out for everybody. You're not forced out of the door. I know a lot of all other cultures, once they're done school, okay, well, we've done our job. It's time for you to leave. Or even when they've turned 18 or 19, it's time for you to leave. And I've also even heard growing up, like a lot of other people would be like, oh, my parents make me pay rent for my bedroom.
Hmm.
And maybe in some brown homes that might exist if there's like a joint family helping and you need to obviously contribute to that household and you work and stuff like that. But it's very customary in other cultures for that to be part of the norm. Leave by 18, leave after university, college, and
Hmm.
not be married and start living your independent life.
Yeah,
And
which is a very young age.
really young. And like, let's not forget, if your parents didn't help you through school, then you're like in debt and you're going
Yeah.
into the big world and you're trying to figure out this whole new life, well, along with getting a career, getting a home, learning to cook and clean and do all these things on your own.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like a lot of other communities, I know growing up, like I definitely heard the, what? What do you mean you still live with your parents? How old are you? I've definitely gotten that throughout some point of my life from multiple people and like non-Indian or non-South Indian people from other cultures. And yeah, they just find it such a surprise, right? Like, oh, you still live with your parents. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not paying bills. Like, I do help out my parents, but that's like a personal choice. It's not like my parents coming to me and being like, okay, you have to pay bills. And like you mentioned, Alicia, there are like situations where people do, but I think it's more so of like, we are all a part of this household and we are all going to contribute to it versus like, okay, this is my house and I want you to, pay for your space in this house kind of thing. And I think that's where like it's not rent, it's more so like we are all part of this family and I'm going to do my part in contributing to this family. Um and yeah, and that's one of the kind of perks that us brown people get. Like you'll hear it a lot of times that some people don't move out until they get married, and that's very normal, like completely normal to us, and obviously not so normal to other cultures, especially now because people are getting married at a later age. Like back in the day, people used to get married by like 24 and stuff like that, move out, or either continue to live with their parents, which is also very normal in our culture. But now people are getting married like in their 30s. So now I'm seeing kind of like, yeah, we're all living with our parents until 30s.
Yeah, it's so true. And like, I am all for it. I'm here for all that. Like, I think once you're financially secured and then you're deciding to either move out or then you're deciding to get married and move out, I think that's how it should be. Because if we look at the younger ages and the earlier generations, a lot of them were getting married in the early 20s. And I don't think they were financially secured, you know?
Nope.
I don't think any young 20-year-old is. And there's so much still to learn and live through, you know? There's so much to go through. I don't even think you're fully developed yet, right? You can be mature. That's one thing, but there's still so much to learn in your 20s, you know? Um, and I got married pretty close to 30, and I don't regret it at all. You know, I was with Amit for a very long time, but we both were like, we want to be financially secure before we even make this next step. And that was very important to us because I wanted to bring 50 and he wanted to bring 50. And I
Yeah.
think that's something super important. And I'm always like encouraging and teaching my mother-in-law that as well for her other two kids is that you never want someone have the upper hand in a relationship because they make more money and you know your daughter or son are still in school or anything like that, right? You
Hmm.
want it to be 50-50 upon an agreement, you know,
Yeah.
and know that you're both on the same page, you're both equally working hard towards something, and that's how it should be. I think brown parents are really, really nice people because their their kids aren't always the nicest. And I know I
Yeah.
was an annoying teenager. I was moody, I was attitudey and sassy. I didn't always listen to my parents. I know a lot of my friends didn't. Raman, I know you're very outspoken, so I know for sure you're another one. But you know, and I feel bad because they just take it. They threaten
Yeah.
you, you know, as you're growing up, they'll be like, I'm gonna send you to a boarding school in India. But let's be honest, that boarding school in India never happened.
Yeah. 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 I know. I know. Like, what boarding school? Like, dude,
Yeah.
this is not happening.
Yeah. So, you
But
know,
yo,
I
if you're like not Indian, you might just get kicked out of the house and be like, go live on your own.
yo, but we've heard it. We've seen it. Like I
Yeah.
heard it. I've seen it. I was I with you? Where was I? Oh my gosh, I was in Calgary. Oh my gosh. Okay, I was at, you know how I used to travel for work to Calgary.
Yeah.
I was going up the elevator one day, but I was with a
Mhm.
coworker because we were on the same floor. And basically there was this boy and his parents came from Toronto and I'm listening to the elevator conversation because they're in the same elevator.
Yeah.
He's like he was living on the streets. Okay, so
Oh.
they kicked him out. I
Mhm.
don't know how he got all the way to Calgary, but within 2 weeks he ended up in Calgary and living on the streets and going through shelter homes. He was only 19 and his parents were like begging him to come home.
Oh.
Yeah, so I and like this was a Gora family. So like, you know, I was listening to it and I heard the story and then the boy basically when the elevator opened, he ran. Like he just
Oh.
ran. And I was just like, "Oh my gosh." For a minute I thought this happened in Toronto, but no, it was Calgary, I remember.
But
And
they were
I just
asking him to come back home with them.
yeah, after they kicked him out. And like he was like, you know, you told me to leave, I've left, now you want me. Like they were fighting. It was pretty bad.
Yeah. It
And in front
causes
of
resentment and anger.
definitely. And I feel like that's why like you can honestly lead to not such a happy life unless you can like overcome it. I don't think it's an easy thing to do. I think one of the biggest things for me is that like I think I hit 23 maybe 22 to
Mhm.
23 and I realized you know, my parents have done so much for me, right? And my
Mhm.
mom has always made sure we had such a great life. We got to travel. She made sure we were cultured. She made sure we got to try everything, anything. And, you know, she spoiled us. She did. And honestly, I'm so thankful for my parents. Like I love them, you know?
Yeah.
And they went above and beyond. Like my mom used to yell at my brother because my brother's a little punk ass, as you know. But she used to be like, you know, my job, my only job is to feed you and shelter you. I don't
Yeah.
actually have to buy you name brand things and stuff. Like, you know, she was just sticking it to him because he's an idiot. And she said this many, many years ago. And I was like, that's so true though. Like her only job is to shelter us till the age of 18, 19. But if we
Yeah.
don't respect them or, you know, give that same respect back, then like what's the point kind of thing, right? So I think it was in my early 20s I realized like, yo, my family's my everything. And that's when I started to spend more time at home on the weekends.
Oh.
And I started hanging out with them more because they were my foundation. And I knew they had my back no matter what would happen in life. And that's why, like, Amit goes he always says to me, like, "You have a soft spot." Like, he's like, "You feel so guilty so easily when, like, you know, your parents call and they're like, 'Oh, we haven't seen you for 5 days.'" And he goes, "And you instantly will run." And he's like, or when my mom calls, and I'm like, "Yeah, because I have a soft spot for both parents because, like, what do they really have other than their children?"
Yeah. And I think as like toxic as some Indian parents can be, that's one thing as Indian children will always have an appreciation for is like, sheltering us and making sure that we always had a roof over our head.
But you know what, Raman? Yes. And I think a lot of parents can be toxic. I totally get it. Toxic families is, Raman. You know, and I've said this a couple times to a few people, and you and I have talked about this on the podcast as well. Our parents, most of our parents are immigrants to Canada, okay?
Hmm.
So they came from India. And let's be honest, okay, whether you came from India, Pakistan, wherever, the point being is it's a different world than what Canadian culture is and what we're used to because we see like Gore, we see other people, we see other cultures, and we're like, oh, that's like different. You know, we see movies, we've grown up with Disney. Life is very different on TV
Yeah.
shows, right? So our parents only know what they came from, which is what their parents only knew from India. And let's be honest, it's not till the last like 20 years did India start to become a little more modern.
Yeah.
Not even, I think 15 years, that India's now evolved and started to become. But there's still pockets in India where it's so traditional that it's so old school still, you know? And so I think that was the other thing. So what did they really know? If they came from a toxic family to begin with, either an alcoholic father, an abusive mother, or whatever it may have been, they know no better. They have nothing
Hmm.
to compare to except if they watched Bollywood, that's the only thing they have.
Yeah,
As opposed
100%.
as opposed to us, we've had all of our shows growing up, and even the movies we watch till today are so different than what we know.
Yeah, I know. It's like when I was young, kind of the other side seemed greener, right? It was always like, oh, like, looking at non-Indian folks and children, and it's like, oh, well, my parents, as I mentioned, they didn't have a lot. So, we didn't kind of go out and do a lot of activities and stuff like that. So it was always like, oh, they non-Indian families are spending more time together. They hug each other. They say, I love you. It's a different experience when you're looking at it from the other side. But then, yeah, as I grew older, I definitely appreciated my parents a lot more. And I'm like, yeah, okay, they don't know how to they don't know how to say I'm proud of you all the time.
Yeah, they'll
And they
tell
might
other
not,
people.
yeah. And they that's the thing, right? They do tell other people. So and they might not always know how to like hug and be like I love you, but I know that definitely the love is there. They do express the love through so many other ways, and it's just by being there and showing their support as my parents and being my family. So yeah, I mean, my perspective definitely changed from when I was younger as well, and I'm like, no, now that I see that we have the greener side of the grass.
Yeah, we do.
Definitely. Another
Yeah.
thing that I think that definitely, like, there's the whole, we don't get kicked out when we're 18 years old. We can stay at our house. And a lot of, usually maybe like it's the eldest son or one of the sons, they do decide to live with their family after marriage as well. So that's another thing that's very common. And it's about like taking care of your parents and stuff like that in their elder age. We don't kind of put our parents into group homes. We also don't see that in our culture where you don't really see, like, I'm sure if you were to go into a group home, you won't really see that many Indian
Indian.
people. And I
Yeah.
have seen like brown people at group homes that like, didn't have the family members just didn't have enough support to be able to take care of their condition because certain conditions, do require more work and like stuff like that. Sorry.
That's
So I
okay.
have seen elder people in group homes, but if you definitely like don't have to do that, I don't see that in our culture as well.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with you on that. And it's kind of nice even in today's day and market to know that once, like, okay, let's be honest, some of us are not at a point in our lives where we can afford a $1.2 million mortgage. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not an easy thing to even get approved for in today's day and
Mhm.
age. Okay. So if you're in your 20s to your 30s, it's a little unknown, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're making a net worth of 400 to 450K a year.
Yeah.
So the thing is with that, even, is what I personally think is that when you want to get married, you love someone and you're like, okay, I have a good job. I'm done school. This person's done school. We both are in our careers, but we still need to save and make money. you can still start your life. Not everything will always be perfect. And this is such a great way to then cohabitat with family members that will take you in and be normal to it, you know?
Hmm.
And I don't think it's just brown cultures. I do have to say though, with this, brown cultures are, it's a huge normalcy for them. But
Yeah.
up to recently with the pandemic, a lot of 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds had to move back home with their
Yeah.
parents.
Yeah.
And I feel like in all cultures, that's where all families came together and realized, no, we got to help our kids out here because this is a different circumstance. But generally, if you're someone who wants to get married, you have the opportunity in the brown culture, without even having to ask, you just know that I can get married tomorrow and I can move in with my parents for now and then save money and move out in a couple of years.
Yeah,
And
100%.
that's such a comforting idea. And speaking of weddings, most brown parents do plan to pay for a lot of their children's weddings, or they have a budget aside to help and put towards their budget. They've had to pay for their entire weddings themselves. That was all
Yeah.
on them. Maybe the mother and father will pay for the dress, but that's it.
Yeah. I have to say that I'm not totally in agreement with like the brown couples that get married and they make their parents pay for like their $60,000 wedding.
Yeah.
I'm not like in agreement to that, but you know, at the end of the day, and even kind of like learning from my parents, I know that it's impossible that they're going to be like, oh, we're not going to pay for nothing. So you have to like dedicate something to them that they get to pay for. But definitely, like as brown parents, they're not going to feel like they've, you know, completed their child's wedding if they did not contribute to some sort of just, you know, something to their wedding.
Yeah, and not even that. You and I are girls, and I know for if you have an only boy or you have only daughters, that's a huge thing for parents to do is take care of their daughter too, right? So that's a
Yeah.
huge thing that they want to contribute to because they're like, well, you're my only kid or you're my only daughter. Like
Yeah.
I want to do this for you, right? So there's that too, and I think it's just the loving factor of it, right?
Yeah.
I feel like all parents have the intention of having children that they want to do everything they have from that point of having a kid. And this is what I assume and what I've heard. I assume because we are not mothers, what the fuck do we know? But I assume it's the fact and the intention that once you have a child and they take that first breath, your entire life's obligations become doing anything and everything for that kid because that's what our parents have done for us. You know, every choice they made, whether it be financially moving or like taking on a job, is to make sure that their kids have the best life possible. And I believe we would do the same, right? We work hard to continue to do enjoy things we like, but also with consideration, what will my kids enjoy? Do I want to take my kids on vacation so they become cultured? Do I want to send them to activities and things like that? So I definitely do think that's another huge factor and something we take on. And I don't think it's just our culture, it's probably everyone's culture, but I've seen it a lot in our culture too, right?
Hmm. 100%. I don't know, man. As I grow older, I definitely start to see, you know, the perks of everything. Another one that I want to mention that, you know, I really think like the power of family comes together is when we have children. And yeah, I know you just said we don't have children, so we don't know. But, you know, having children around us, we see how much support a family gives when like one does have a child.
Oh my
Um,
God. So
yeah,
freaking true.
yeah, so much support. You know, it doesn't feel like, okay, I'm having a child and it's just going to be me. You know, you have both parents, both you and your husband's parents, you know, for support. If you ever need anything, the mother is like ready to come, and, you know, take care of the child. Or, you know, a lot of the times we see that, you know, as obviously our parents are getting older, they're retiring, so they are home. We have the freedom to like leave our children with our parents and we don't have to like, and a
Think
lot of,
twice.
and I know not everybody has this luxury because they still have like maybe parents or in-laws that are working full time and they can't do that and they do have to send their kids to daycare. But we do have that luxury of not having to pay for daycare and having our basically parents be our babysitters, but at the same time, not considering them as babysitters because I have to say that children make their grandparents like lives so much better and literally live longer for the happiness. So it's like they're so happy to do it and be able to, like, take care of their grandkids. And I've never really seen any grandparent ever complain about it.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more with that. It really does take like a village to raise a child, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And who better than the people that raised you and that you trust the most?
Yeah, absolutely. And man, do you know how much freaking daycare is?
It's
Like, so many of these people
expensive.
are spending like half their salary on daycare.
It's expensive.
Yeah. And you know what? And I don't know if this
And
is
do you really trust these daycare people? Let's be honest.
no, not all the time. Not like if I can, not if it's one of those educational daycares. If it's just like my child's a baby and they're not actually learning anything and they're just going there to kind of go there because nobody's there to take care of them, then yeah, it's just unnecessary money that, I feel like in our culture, we see it a lot that we use our parents to kind of help us out. And I don't know. This is like, I might be being biased because I just don't know enough non-Indian people with kids that have mothers or in-laws that help them take care of their children. I've always seen them like put them in daycare or have babysitters and stuff like that. So this is kind of like how I view things in my head. And I could be wrong. There could be a lot of people out there that do have the help and support. But for the most part, like I don't see like non-South Asian families and stuff like that have that family support to help them take care of their children.
Yeah, exactly.
I definitely think, when there's any types of hard times, our families always come together, and every family, it's like no one's ever going to be like, okay, well, I'm not going to be there to help you, even if they don't have the full capacity to help you. I think, our families definitely try to see what they can do for you and for, our children. So I definitely think, Indian families hold a strong bond, and, the whole joint family thing is amazing. Oh, wait, there's one thing that I really wanted to tell you and everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if you've seen this video. So, when Aishwarya Rai kind of started coming into the Hollywood industry and stuff like that, I feel like people had that stigma around her. They were like, oh, well, you still live with your parents, like, you're how old and stuff like that. And, the Hollywood industry definitely judged the Bollywood industry for this. So she's on a late night talk show host. And honestly, I can see the guy's face in my head, but I can't remember how he looks like. He's like the
Mhm.
older white guy. He still does his talk show.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
I
Not
think the
Jimmy
bald guy.
Fallon, but
I know
like
who
the
you're
other.
talking about.
Yeah.
Not Leonard
Um,
King, but the bald guy.
Yes, yes, him. I can't remember his name, but anyways, it's a very old video of her being on his talk show, and he's basically trying to poke fun at like the Indian community. He was like, "Is it true that you still live with your parents?" And then she's like, "Yes." And then he's like, "Oh, well, is it like normal for people of your age in your country to live with your parents, you know?" Um, and then he was kind of basically trying to poke fun at her. And then she was like, yeah, but it's also normal in my community and in my culture to not have to make appointments to have dinner with my family. So, she had the best comeback and like everybody cheered for her. And it's like, yeah, it's like, our version of normal is like, we can at least go downstairs and see our parents for dinner. We don't have to arrange, a time and a place to meet with our parents. It's like, they're always going to be there. So I thought that was a very clever clapback, but that just shows me how much of like the Indian community is judged for some of kind of the decisions we make. But, to us it's normal and we love it and the grass is greener.
It is definitely, I think to people just because it's different to them, they judge it, right? And they think it's weird, but really it's just because it's different to you doesn't mean it's not normal to someone else, right?
Yeah. If
But
anything, I think like people might be jealous that, they don't
that
get to
too.
stay home.
Oh, I know a lot of my friends get jealous due to, how we're treated and how we're taken care of by our parents. Like, think about it. Like, when it comes to your wedding jewelry, when you buy a new home, like, you're gifted with so much. Even just today, Diwali, like, we're given
Yeah.
so much money as, like, blessings, you know?
Yeah.
And like like I get it from my grandparents, I get it from my aunts and uncles, I get it from everybody, and it's kind of, and I always want to make sure that with that money I don't just spend it on anything. I always make sure any event I have in the Indian culture, I use that money towards something that I'll always remember, you know what I mean, whether a
Yeah.
piece of jewelry or something like that. But it's just so nice to have that. So
Yeah.
honestly, we're very fortunate. And if you're younger and you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I hate my parents, you know, there'll be a day you won't hate your parents. So
Yeah.
just remember that. Okay. So start to appreciate them a little more.
100%. I know, like growing up, we definitely did. So you will too, just start now. But happy Diwali, everyone, again. Hopefully, everyone has, a beautiful evening with their family and with some fireworks and good food. And as always, thank you for listening and joining in on another episode of our Brown Girl Month. If you do have any suggestions of what you want to hear this month on topics, please email us at ramanandalysha@gmail.com. And if you're not following us on social media, follow us on at Level Up with Raman and Alysha.
Yes. Thanks for listening and have a happy Diwali, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.